EasyDNS is the Swiss Army knife for your domain names, helping meet their customers' individual needs since 1998. EasyDNS has been an outspoken critic of SOPA and CISPA. EasyDNS was an early supporter of Bitcoin, and now they are proud to sponsor this show. Do business with a company that shares your values. Get a 13% discount when you pay with Bitcoin. Go to bitcoin.easydns.com and be sure to use discount code LTB.
Clearly, this is a gray area here, but there is some positive momentum, as far as clarifying terms. I think words really do matter in this space, and so it's nice to see that there's a cross-platform effort going on there. When it comes to these potentially legally controversial issues, I sort of thought that was why the Counterparty developers, yourself included, initially went only by pseudonyms. I initially knew you as xnova, and it was only in the last week or two that, I've come to know you as Robbie. So can you talk about the project in the early days and the decisions to be anonymous, and then frankly the decisions now that it's time to go live to not?
I think initially, when Counterparty started and it was, we released on mainnet, we had the reference client released January 2nd of this year. So, when we did that, we did so with aliases, and we were anonymous. Phantom Freak, xnova, which was me, and then City Glut, which was Evan, and Phantom is Adam. So when we did that, the two main reasons were just to make it more about the technology rather than us as individuals. We wanted people to really focus on the technology itself, evaluate the technology on its own merits, and then decide whether it stood on its own 2 feet. I think the second issue was, as you stated, the legal climate definitely has the gray areas where it's not like that, this technology is clearly illegal. It's more like there's really no precedence for this technology. It is something that's totally new. And it was kind of funny because, I was watching the Senate hearings, I think late last November, or various folks that were testifying about as far as Bitcoin, what it is. And all the conversation was on Bitcoin as a payment technology, the Bitcoin token concept. That alone is just so new to, these kinds of legal authorities. Just using this digital cash that you can transfer things around that's decentralized. There's no Liberty Reserve or eGold company to go after and assets to seize, for instance. But then, I don't know if fully the whole idea and weight of the whole blockchain concept, the blockchain technology, has really even dawned on Washington yet. And that's going to be very interesting. And I don't want to use the phrase exciting, but I'll use the phrase interesting because there's so much more possible with that technology. What is Bitcoin? Is it a network that exists to carry around this digital token called, little b Bitcoin that people can exchange and shops can take it and it can be used for e-commerce applications? Is it the blockchain technology itself where that this digital Bitcoin token happens to be one aspect of that? But on the blockchain, you can essentially utilize it in all sorts of ways. You can embed data in it. You can extend it, through extending scripts or side chains, tree chains, all this different technology. It really becomes kind of like the prototypical or the initial this application platform essentially that can be used for decentralized crypto financial applications. So that's really what is really working its way out. I personally see it as the latter, but I think it was Tony Galippi. He mentioned as far as you can have tokens that represent houses, or there was some phrase he had in there, and I think it just went right over everyone's heads who was there on the panel. You're going to be seeing a lot more of that when that's going to be really taking center stage, and like, whoa, you can do more than just transferring around for payments. You can have these tokens that represent things. You can. Well,
so what does this mean for Bitcoin? I mean, like, let's get into it, because this is a big question. A lot of people look at these new tokens that are coming out and they say this is competing with Bitcoin because value is going into it that would otherwise have gone into Bitcoin.
So when you look at Counterparty itself, you have these 1.0 alt chains, I'd call them, such as like Litecoin and Dogecoin and Maxcoin or whatever else. And you look at Counterparty itself, and Counterparty actually rides on top of Bitcoin. And with Counterparty, we try to make Bitcoin as much of a first-class citizen token as possible. So what that means, for instance, you can trade from Bitcoin into any counterparty asset, whether that be LTB coin or whatnot. We don't force people to go through XCP, which is a native counterparty currency. We really want to keep Bitcoin relevant in it. These 2.0 tokens that are built on top of our counterparty decentralized marketplace, they can be exchanged directly for Bitcoin. They build on top of Bitcoin. They utilize the security of the Bitcoin network, which is really important. You have all these altcoins, for instance, that just have very marginal hash rates. Their security is very low, or someone could just point a multipool at it or whatever, and just, if they wanted to be malicious, they could just crush the coin. And we're seeing that with several of them. And this really kind of takes that out of the equation. So instead of having these forked efforts, you can have these tokens that actually exist on top of Bitcoin and can add value to the Bitcoin ecosystem. To that point, there are really, I think, two philosophical camps here in regards to altcoins, for instance. Kind of the view of maybe Adam Back, for instance, which is the digital scarcity concept, which is, there's no reason for these alternative tokens to exist. Everyone can just use Bitcoin, and you have side chains and people move their Bitcoin around. And really, Bitcoin is really the main token. Then you have another concept. I first heard this with a video that Andreas did. I think it was over at that conference they had up in Toronto, where he was talking about money as a language of value and kind of comparing the rise of these altcoins really to be an early stage attempt where, like, for instance, at one point it used to be just inconceivable for, why would you need your own website for your own personal stuff? Why would you need your own website? Starting a company, starting a website, or starting a website even for who you are, the whole kind of concept of a Facebook page. Why do we need all these websites? But people do them anyhow. So you can really see this concept of taking that kind of analogy over to these tokens, where just like you'd have a website, maybe not as many websites, but you start a new effort up, and that effort can use something where there's a crowd sale type analogy to it, or if you want to build up some kind of equity or increase retention within your community, they can be used as a method of really saying this is a community, and then people can exchange value and use these tokens to communicate value with one another. And so you could see the point where these tokens are very, very just numerous, and you don't have to worry about all this technical geek stuff such as, oh, God, I got to get the hash power. I have to have people mine my coin. It's just like, it really takes it down to a 30-second thing. I just create my token, and then I can actually get to using the token, promoting my token. Really, the technology is taken care of for me. So you essentially have these two camps. I tend to subscribe more to the second one. I think that is just more in line with how human nature and just how humans have historically used money. It's a very interesting concept because it kind of utilizes this internet website idea, as well as moving money back to what it used to be, where you'd have this representative currencies or these commodity currencies where you could go into one community, the money that would be being used would be different from one community or one civilization to another. It's just whatever they saw as having value.
It sort of makes me think of regional dialects too. You can have the same language. Yeah, exactly. Again, like that's sort of what seems like Counterparty or Mastercoin would be, is that, like they're built on the biggest language, Bitcoin or English. They allow you to personalize and customize as kind of needed. So it's like slang almost. It's
a language for creating more languages, So you have these currencies as these nation state tokens. I mean, we still have, of course, we'll have the fiat currencies, but you can also have this thing where people can create their own tokens for their communities or for whatever.
So, the wallet is fascinating because it's the first time, that I've really seen multiple tokens held in the same installation. And I mean, that's, of course, the other thing. The web wallet is so necessary for this project because if you want to install a full node client, it's not just as simple as downloading and installing a new client. You actually have to re-index the client. So can you talk to me about the web wallet? This is one of the first multi-asset wallets that I've seen. And it seems like if you think that we're going to have millions of tokens around, or hundreds of thousands of different types of tokens around, this is a problem that's going to need to be solved. Will this scale? I mean, is this just the start?
I think it's just a start. I think the web wallet, if you look at the user interface, for instance, you have an address, and in that address, you can have one or more of these kinds of tokens. Right now, the address is kind of like a box, and then these tokens are like little boxes within that box is how they're represented. So it's kind of like you open up a box, and then you have these various tokens laying within the box. I think that, you may have 1 million assets or tokens on the network, but how many of those is your average user really going to have in a given address? They could have 10, 20, 30, 5. I don't think most users are going to have more than 15 or 20 in a given address, but that could be the famous, who needs more than 640K of memory statement. That's
right.
So it's, I don't want to say that, but at the same point, I think there's a lot of things that you can do around the UI to kind of show like the most commonly used assets if somebody has a lot of tokens or assets sitting in a given address. There's a lot of tweaks, and this is initially where we just show it all. And I think as this kind of technology gains a foothold, we can continue to iterate on that, continue to make tweaks just to keep it to be a very user-friendly experience. So that's really the goal with CounterWallet, because, as you said, it is really, I think it's set a lot of firsts, because it's not only that where you can have all these multiple assets, it trades on chain. So it's on the blockchain. So like with a decentralized exchange experience that most people are used to, you will send funds to a deposit address. Then you'll trade on the centralized exchange, and those trades happen very quickly because it's utilizing the exchange's own trade engine to do it off of the blockchain. And then you cash out. But with CounterWallet, you're actually trading. When you trade on the decentralized exchange, you're trading on the blockchain. So, for instance, I'll go create an account. I'll send coins to my wallet, Bitcoins, and then say I want to do a trade from Bitcoin and buy some XEP with my Bitcoins. I'm going to create an order, and it's going to take a confirmation for that order to actually show up on the exchange. So the order will be sent essentially to the Bitcoin peer-to-peer network. Some miner is going to pick it up, package it into a block. That normally happens within just one block. All of our counterparty transactions pay a miner's fee, so they normally pick it up relatively quickly. It ends up into a block. Once it ends up into a block, the protocol, the Counterparty D reference client running on 100, 200, 500, 1,000 machines, whatever, will essentially see this order, and then it will go through, look at all the other open orders, and it will say, okay, do I have any orders that will match this order? When you created the order, it actually escrowed the funds away, so it is actually holding on to those funds. They were kind of removed from your balance. So for instance, you have a banking account, and let's say you may have $20, but you can actually only use 10 of those dollars. It's similar to that kind of concept. So the funds were escrowed, and then the protocol will automatically match open orders, and then when it does that, it creates these order matches, exchanges the funds, and then unescrows them. So that's essentially how it works. With Bitcoin, there's one extra step called the BTC Pay.
You said one of the 3 primary things the Counterparty aims to do is to make it so you can trade anything. How does this enable that? I can see that it would enable you to trade anything that's on the Counterparty platform, and I can see that it enables you to trade anything on Bitcoin. Yep. But does it enable you to trade anything on another coin, like Dogecoin or something like that? Can I trade Dogecoin on this platform?
So far, we've explored the decentralized exchange from the concept of these native tokens, such as LTB coins, such as XCP. But we've also been working on introducing the concept of proxy tokens, which is a token on the Counterparty network that represents something else. For instance, we have this technology and what's actually even more exciting about this technology is actually comes out of a member of the Counterparty community that's actually forming a business around it. And that's so cool to start to see these businesses coming out of this. But the technology is called Vend. And what Vend is, you can really think of it as a digital vending machine. So I can have a vending machine for LTC, for Litecoin, for instance. I'll go to the webpage for this vending machine, and I'll say, okay, I want to get XLTC or CryptLTC or whatever this Counterparty proxy token is named, sent to this Counterparty address. I'll type in my Counterparty address, and we'll say, okay, send your Litecoin to this Litecoin address. And so I'll send my Litecoin to the Litecoin address, and then the vending machine will essentially create some, if Cryptsy ran the vending machine, they may want to call it CryptLTC. It will create some CryptLTC, and it will put it into my CounterWallet address. And then I can essentially trade that CryptLTC as a one-to-one proxy token for Litecoin on top of Bitcoin on the Counterparty decentralized exchange. When I trade it with some other guy, this guy goes to the Cryptsy vending machine webpage and he says, hey, I want to cash out. It says, okay, what's your Litecoin address? He puts his Litecoin address in, sends the CryptLTC to the vending machine, and it reverses the process and cashes him out of it.
So it's like automated exchange.
Yeah, so it's like a micro exchange. So what comes out of this concept is you essentially have this, it's kind of similar to Ripple on some regards, where you essentially have you have the decentralized exchange in the middle. It's like a circle. You have the decentralized exchange in the middle, and then you have these semi-centralized vending machines around it. And then these through these proxy tokens, people can come in and come out of it. So Counterparty, our decentralized exchange really becomes a meta exchange where you can trade essentially any kind of altcoin that you will have a vending machine for on top of Bitcoin. And no longer do you need to run a centralized exchange. You can just do this with the decentralized exchange technology. So no Mt. Gox can go down and take all your money. You just have the vending machine operator, and the vending machine operator can charge a small fee. So there's a profit motive. So Cryptsy could start up a few vending machines for their things, for instance, and charge a fee on their vending machines. It's another line of business for them.
So the advantage of this would be that by using a vending machine, people would be able to take real Litecoin and convert it into Litecoin that can be traded on this exchange against all of the other tokens that are also trading on the exchange. Is that right?
Exactly.
And so that makes the Litecoin more useful, which is why someone would be willing to pay a fee. I'm trying to work through the logic on this, but I think that makes sense, right?
Yeah, essentially. So you enable trading of these altcoins essentially on the decentralized exchange on top of Bitcoin.
You know, the reason why a lot of people trade is because they like the idea of trading in a short-term, responsive, kind of day trader-y sort of way. I don't really think that's possible with decentralized exchanges. What do you think the value of decentralized exchanges are?
Let me back up and look at the second use case of these proxy tokens, and then that may help shed some more light on that question. The second use case is that, not only can you do this with these alt chains, you can also have proxy tokens for things like US dollar, euro, commodities like corn, soy, and wheat. So I think there's some interest. There's been an interest with a few significant players in the space potentially doing something like a USD coin, where what happens is that you may have a company. I'm going to use Coinbase in this example. It's not Coinbase, but I'm just going to use them for the example. You'll have a company like Coinbase that will have a Coinbase USD proxy token, and they're fully compliant with FinCEN and all of that. They have all the AML and KYC stuff out of the way. And so you can go to the Coinbase site and you can essentially give them $5,000 US, you buy 5,000 Coinbase USD tokens. And then you can hold on to those tokens and you can trade those tokens on the decentralized exchange, and likewise someone can cash back out. The token would have Coinbase's name right in it. They can utilize their reputation, and then they can also, there's a profit model for them where they just essentially will collect fees. They can collect a small exchange fee on either coming into the token or exiting or both. So it really opens the door up to not only trading native 2.0 tokens on top of Counterparty, not only trading the altcoins, the 1.0 altcoins on top of Counterparty, but also trading virtually anything that you can create a proxy token with. I can just hold on to these USD coins. I have funds that I can easily trade into Bitcoin, but I don't have to hold on to Bitcoins and expose myself to the Bitcoin volatility if I don't mean to. So it can be like somewhat of a long hedging mechanism. And there's a variety of other useful kinds of things that you can do with this whole proxy token technology, as well as establishing markets between, pick a currency, one kind of fiat currency and some kind of altcoin. So with Counterparty, any two assets you can have a pair form through them and a market form around them. You just trade one for the other. And if other people are trading, we'll establish a market between those two kinds of assets or tokens.
So rather than market risk, it's more like individual issuer risk.
Exactly. So the risk with that, and that's why we call it semi-centralized, is that because you're essentially holding on to these Coinbase USDs. Now, if Coinbase went down, what they could do is just have a thing where, or if they had issues or they were going to stop with this offering, they could have something where send all your Coinbase USD back in and we can cash them back out, or like any kind of centralized exchange. If they had Coinbase USDs in they just went totally out of business. You could have an issue just like you would with a centralized exchange. So it's not a perfectly decentralized concept, but it's a good way for, especially when you're talking about things like enabling the trade of fiat commodities and other various kinds of quote unquote real world assets on top of this decentralized blockchain technology. It's a pretty neat way to do that and a pretty simple way to do it.